Oh, you know what? You know what I want to talk to you about, Nomi, was this, and folks can participate in pushing this. Where is this?
The way that you started that is almost like I have to have a talk with you, Nomi.
Listen, Nomi, everything that's going on with your air conditioner, we're a little bit concerned. There is a bill, as you know, the New York Health Act, that would create a single-payer system in this state. It was introduced in 1992 by Richard Gottfried. He is now sitting on the head of a committee that this bill seems like it has an actual chance of going somewhere in New York State. And we have a weakened governor who is sort of under siege a little bit still. And I don't know, if I was Andrew Cuomo and I wanted to try and run for governor again, or some way rehabilitate myself, this might be something that I would sign if it gets there. I don't know, maybe. You can go and help this by going to New York H, that's NYH, as in New York Healthcare, NYHcampaign.org. And it gives you all sorts of information to support it. But what do you know about this, Nomi?
I mean, basically what you said. I mean, the reason why this is even on the table now, even though it's been on the table since the 90s, by Gottfried, who, has been championing this since then, and others like Gustavo Rivera, who's also a senator from New York. This happened because the IDC the Independent Democratic Conference was defeated. What happened, was Andrew Cuomo was able to pretend to be progressive and not have to veto legislation because he had these 8 Democrats who were in the Senate that were conferencing with Republicans and getting perks and bigger offices and not working with their fellow Democrats, even though they mostly came from Democratic districts. And that's why the IDs but people didn't know because, pre-Trump, people didn't pay attention to local politics, I guess, or the majority, I should say. So, I think the question is whether or not another bill could potentially be presented in the future, not this session, obviously, as it's almost over. And if folks can really, I think the Senate is much stronger than the Assembly in terms of progressive politicians or leadership, I should say. That's actually a better way of saying it, is the leadership, I think, has more of a motivation to, even though it's a smaller, group, they have more of a motivation to stay bold. And but there's so many more Democrats in the Assembly that I think it'll pass no matter what. We'll see. I think people Cuomo is stronger polls wise still to this day, stronger than he may appear to like progressives who've just been reading all the stories, or anybody who's been reading the stories. And simultaneously, there's like backroom political stuff happening with the Assembly, which is leading the investigation right now of him, because he still is under investigation both by Attorney General Tish James and the Assembly right now. So, there's like rumblings of him cutting a deal with the speaker, the leader of the Assembly, Carl Hastie. And of course, Tish James, who's in an extraordinarily strong position to potentially run against Cuomo, or if he, look at it this way in terms of politics. If she's leading an investigation, she's Attorney General, she's most likely next, and he gets, she investigates and finds that he was wrong across the board, and he has to step down. She's the next in line to be unified around. So she actually has like a little bit of it's not a direct conflict of interest because you can't, nobody can perceive her motivations because the law is the law is the law, and she's going to have to follow the law. But she's most likely the best candidate to replace him on the Democratic side. Also, potentially challenge him if she has the courage, or at least explore the idea of challenging him. And if she's exploring the idea seriously of challenging him, he may not run again. So if all of the energy is being put in the Assembly, it's more likely that Andrew Cuomo cuts a deal. Both of the investigations are happening at the same time. So I'm not going to didn't say that one's going to go away for the other. But, these are like the multi-dimensional dynamics and politics of New York State, which is real fun everywhere, actually. But we have to start thinking this way because it's not like, oh, we got him with the story. No. Andrew Cuomo is a political machine. He'll find his way.
Of course. The point is, though, this is a very big opportunity. And if this can happen in New York State, look, New York State and California State, New York State, California, they need to be, we need these states to be leaders in this type of progressive legislation because of their size. It's just going to create a compulsion. It's going to compel other states to do this.
Well, California had it done until it was kind of in the 11th hour done away with, essentially, backroom machinations.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what I fear is going to happen in New York. A similar type of governor. I'm not saying Newsom is as bad as Cuomo because it's hard to be a Democratic governor as bad as Cuomo, but I think there's going to be, as Nomi said, a lot of political considerations if this does get passed, if it gets implemented due to, you know, of course, all of the circumstances surrounding Andrew Cuomo. I saw this pointed out on Twitter, though, and why I'm happy you're bringing it up and asking Nomi about this is because I feel like there hasn't been a lot of energy directed towards this by, you know, progressives who were, you know, ostensibly quite interested in forcing a vote on Medicare for all. I'm not trying to bring that up, but or relitigate that. But I do think it's key that Sam makes the correct point that if this happens in a state like New York, if it eventually happens again in a state like California, then these are the building blocks that set up a situation where progressives could make a power play for Medicare for all.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really important point. The organizing, I'm not saying that there hasn't been organizing. There's definitely been organizing around passing this, but there's a lot of energy going in a lot of different directions right now. If this were to happen next year again, which, you know, given that it's been on the table since '92, it could very likely happen that way when it's not a mayoral year, when the oxygen isn't being sucked out of the room, when there aren't so many I mean, there's every city council election is taking place right now. A lot of this energy is coming from New York City, but targeting that New York City energy towards the senators who are, you know, Long Island, upstate, on the fence, the new version of the IDC. There's only a couple of them, but you know they're doing all they can to protect King Cuomo. You know, you've got to like keep the pressure going on them, and those are the ones that feel. The local lawmakers feel the pressure in a way that Cuomo can just kind of like move through it.
Yep. You get dollar for dollar and literally dollar for dollar, but also, you know, call for call. When you call a state assemblyman or assembly person or a state senator versus like your congressperson, your call, there's an algorithm and your call is literally worth more than it would be any other politician that you call, because most people don't even know who their state senator is. And the idea that you would pick up the phone on a certain bill is going to weigh heavily on them. There's a presumption. I mean, you know.
And it's just such a shame that this, as we've talked about, this mayoral race is such a cluster F, because like when Cynthia Nixon ran, that was a really important moment to galvanize a lot of progressive energy after Ocasio-Cortez was successful. And that was instrumental in kind of taking the next step to get rid of the IDC. And I don't feel the same energy in New York right now when we're talking about, say, progressive issues like single payer. So there's just like the lack of cohesiveness when it comes to energy in this election year, at least in New York City, is frustrating.
Well, you know, and some of that is because the organizations that coalesced around the Senate and in defeating the IDC and the senators who were leading this too, but behind the scenes very quietly, and you know, now it's been reported on, but you know, people didn't really like publicly know it at the time. That's not happening. You know, not only is the leadership not bringing all these organizations together to really go bold, the organization's resources are specifically going into winning elections, winning these city council races and the mayoral races. I mean, it's so much of the energy that is being consumed. And I think we think that it happens in this organic way, and in some ways it is, but it's often around these like coalition groups, at least for it to get beyond like, you know, a few protests here and there, and really pulling together the energy, the press, the momentum, so that something's defeated. I think if this is, I mean, the moment, who knows what the moment's going to look like next year? Who knows where Cuomo is going to be next year? But, you know, I think there could be a lot of energy in organizing from now until then. And you guys should have Gustavo Rivera on. He's really good. If you haven't before, Senator Rivera from New York, great at talking about this. We've interviewed, and Godfrey too, of course.